space.
No, I think that was a really good idea. Like in terms of that, I know when the pandemic first hit, I was very lucky where I was working, where they said, here's a credit that you guys can use to do your home office, whether it's monitors, whether it's headphones or anything like that. Although I'll make this story brief. I didn't realize at the time, so they said, okay, we're going to give you a certain credit for to do something for your office. So of course I'm going to be, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to buy some monitors, I'm going to buy some headphones, and and I think, okay, I'll just expense it to the company. And then I kid you not, Joseph, an email right afterwards, I purchased all these things. They said, yep, and just as an explanation for the program, here's the catalog that you can use to order stuff from.
Are you serious?
That's the only approved one, and it's a big
Oh my
company. So
goodness.
it wasn't like it was a big catalog, right? It was from a big, well-known company. It's Grand and Toy. So it's like, okay, we know that's the case, but I'm like, oh, so all this stuff I just invested, I'm like, I can't use it or I can't claim it back. So I was like, okay, I just bought a chair. So that
Uh,
was pretty much it. But it's nice to hear because not a lot of offices did that, right? Especially because at that time we didn't know when anyone's going to be going back to the office. I think now we're slowly starting to get that going now, right? But the fact that you
totally.
guys were ahead of the curve and just said, let's invest in that, invest in our people, so that give them the tools that they need to do their job correctly. Then yeah, that's really great to hear. So excellent. So you talk about stuff that people don't normally see. Now, this is not a social media podcast. So what social media tools do you guys use, and how does it help your business?
Totally. I mean, obviously, being in a sales related space, we make liberal use of LinkedIn. So that's one of the tools that we all use at all levels of the business. Beyond that, in terms of general social media, it's a lot of the usual suspects. We put a lot of content on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok as well for our video content. We also make good use of Twitter and Facebook, especially from an advertising perspective. Um, in terms of that impact on the business, first and foremost is lead generation. I mean, a lot of our members find us through search and social. So social media is really critical on that. But most importantly, we use it for strategic purposes as well. Like when we're considering new courses, we're considering new offerings, we're looking for experts to bring in, we leverage social media for that. So a really good example, we are uh, am I allowed to talk about this? Yes. We're launching a new account executive program. And one of the ways that we brought in like instructors, peers that were kind of making those connections was reaching out to our network on Twitter, on LinkedIn to validate curriculum, content, employer partners. And so we use it for our strategic planning as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn is actually a tool that not a lot of people have considered. I never really considered at the time as well. But the funny thing is, I've landed a few like side gig projects through LinkedIn just cause, right? And I'm like I mentioned to some listeners here, but aside from this podcast I'm doing right now, I also do voiceover work, and I found a client just through that, where I'm just narrating their YouTube videos. So I was like, wow. And another thing that this one won't be released a little bit later, so we'll see if this happens or not. Where I'm in discussions with another podcast that wants me to be a co-host for them, and it's basically about the Toronto Blue Jays, right?
Hmm.
So between you and me, Joseph, I am a casual fan of the Toronto Blue Jays. I want them to win. I remember them back in 1992, 1993, where they actually won the World Series. I don't know if you follow baseball at all, but I'm just a casual fan. I listen to their podcast, Joseph. Yeah, they're pretty much a hardcore fan where it's like, okay. And I laid it out. I'm a casual fan. I'll try to keep up with you guys just for that, and we'll see what happens, how that goes. But all this stuff was through LinkedIn, which I was at the time I was always thinking Facebook or Instagram or like you said TikTok and all this sort of thing. But LinkedIn is not a bad tool actually. It's a lot of opportunity there.
All of these social networks, one of the things I love most about them is as much as there can be a lot of noise, there can be a lot of crap and a lot of distraction. There's genuinely people who want to help out. And for me, I found Twitter and LinkedIn to be great places of that. I'll share another story because we're talking about sports. Uh, for me, getting into sports, I'm a Raptors fan. I love F1, is a very new thing for me. Like growing up, I was never into team sports and I just didn't get it. As we got into selling to sales teams, there are so many sports analogies in the sales environment. Like it is just terrible. You can't walk 10 feet down the street without bumping into a sports analogy. And so part of my job as we worked at building this company was get better at sales analogies because I had one event where I was speaking and I was trying to use a football analogy, and this is not one of my sports. And I talked about it as the getting the ball to the touch zone, and I made a great reference to the amazing quarterback Tim Brady, and
Boy.
oh, I was savaged by our team. This was not my cup of tea, but reaching out on Twitter and LinkedIn, I was like, hey, I got to get better at this stuff. What are the things I need to know? Oh man, the number of people who offered amazing podcasts, amazing references, articles. And I don't think I would be as much of a rabid Raptors at F1 fan as I am now if I hadn't actually reached out and admitted this is something I need to get better at. And it brings me a ton of joy now. So there's a large part of my personal life that, I'm very grateful that the networks I have on Twitter and on LinkedIn help me do that.